The first quarter of the Jets season is in the books. It's report card time. What's going on, Jet fans? Thanks for stopping in, and thank you to the guest of the day, Matt. Oh, I guess we're both double guests. I'm a guest on Matt's channel. He's a guest on mine. What's up, dude?
I love it. Little cross promotion here, doing a little streaming action on a Wednesday. Things you love to see. Although I don't know if we're going to love these grades that we're going to get through today.
Some of them, yes, some of them, no. I wanted to tag in Matt for this one. I think we're going to try to I try not to make too many long commitments because our YouTubers or our schedules are fickle. We'll see. Me and Matt are going to try to roll with this on Wednesdays. But you're pretty sane, I would say. You're pretty measured. I feel like you don't get too high, too low. So I'm like, all right. I'm feeling like that loss stung me in a way that I feel like is not logical. But I'm still just down in the dumps about it. So I'm like, let me tag in Matt to make sure that my grades aren't too harsh on the team. That at the end of the day, if the season ended right now, would be the 5th seed in the AFC. But let's start with, we are going to do coaching, but we're going to save that to the end. Let's start with the quarterback play in Aaron Rodgers. What did you give him?
Okay. So I ended up landing on an A-, and I'm wondering if that is maybe too optimistic. We'll see what your grade ends up being. But the reason why I landed on A- might be because we have just not seen quarterback play that comes anything close to this. And while it's probably not up to through 4 games like the elite standard or the Aaron Rodgers standard, it is still like so significantly better than anything that we've seen. And even in the games that he wasn't like phenomenal in, except maybe this 4th game against Denver. Like I think we at least saw like some really positive flashes. So I tried my best not to let this only the Denver game like skew all of my grades here. Easier said than done, but I ended up on an A- because I think the quarterback play that we've gotten from Rodgers has been good, but there's still room for it to even improve here.
I'm not that far off. I gave him a B+, and I'll say this: I tried not to factor in the Jet standard of quarterback play, but I did factor in that quarterback play around the league is not so hot the first 4 games of the season. So like relative to his peers, like Patrick Mahomes has like 5 picks or whatever. Like Sam Darnold would win MVP right now. So it's kind of wonky around the league. But I think that at the end of the day, like, dude, if Garrett Wilson is in the right spot on that throw, then they get the ball at the 35-yard line. They get 3 more downs to work with, and then it's like Rodgers orchestrates the game-winning drive, and it's like we're probably thinking like more towards an A. I think the biggest plus for Rodgers is that he doesn't have a single turnover-worthy play at all. Now he was bailed out because he probably fumbled the ball, but they didn't call it, and even the interception in San Fran technically wasn't a turnover-worthy play. And that was something that the Jets were leading the league in at this time last year. So taking care of the football, he's been solid. I think he looks like a Hall of Famer who's 40 years old. Like that's kind of what Aaron Rodgers looks like. I was excited though when he did that QB keeper and pulled it down and went and got 8 yards. I was like, yeah, he looks young. And then he got decked and he like wobbled off like a senior citizen going to bingo to the sideline. I'm like, oh Christ. But a B+ for Rodgers. So we're not too far off on the quarterback play. How about the guys in front of him? Where are you at with the offensive line?
So this is another one where I think my grade would have ended up being a little bit higher, but we had a really rough outing against Denver. But I still went with a B here because I think overall they've been pretty solid, especially in pass protection. Again, excluding this last game against Denver where they allow 14 quarterback hits and 5 sacks in the game, which is just not good and not acceptable. I thought the Joe Tippmann growth this year, he's looked really good through the first 4 games of the year. I think Elijah Vera Tucker settling in. John Simpson, I don't know where you stood on him as a free agent signing, but I think lukewarm might be like putting it nicely for where I was on Simpson. I thought there's a good chance he was going to end up being the weakest link on this line, which I don't think has been the case. I thought actually before Morgan Moses got hurt, it was probably him. But overall, like I've been pretty okay with where the Jets offensive line play has been. I think there's room for improvement, obviously, with this B grade. But I think there's a lot of things that you could take from it and like from this line play, specifically again in pass pro. A run block, if we isolate it to pass protection and run scheme, I think the grades would have been a little bit different, but I ended up evening it out and giving it a B.
Yeah, I'm a little. I guess I'm the German judge here. I gave them a C plus, which feels low. I do agree that the pass pro the first 3 weeks was good. I think I think it is worth noting that Aaron Rodgers has like the second high quickest release time in the NFL, so that's helping. But the run blocking has been consistently bad. And I don't know what there's definitely a communication thing, and I think run blocking requires more like continuity than pass blocking. And there were times I was rewatching this game, and it's been consistent throughout the whole year where they're run blocking where you can see like dudes are trying to do like combo blocks or whatever, and they're not getting to their spot. There's a lot of like makes the first block and then oh shit, and the guy's behind him, and Brees Hall's getting tackled in the backfield. So I think that the talent, like the performance of the run blocking, doesn't align with the talent because there's some talented dudes here. Obviously, in both phases, it was bad on Sunday, but even against San Francisco, I thought the pass pro was pretty good when we got blown out. So maybe I'm weighting that last one too high. I think more so I'm just ticked that like I think we're underperforming the talent level on the offensive line.
That's fair. Like I think Tyron Smith has kind of left a little bit to be desired with his play through the first four. Like I thought his play would be a little bit higher.
Yeah, you could argue he's been their worst offensive lineman, which is kind of crazy. I don't remember the stat. It was some crazy number where I think he didn't give up any sacks last year in 13 games, and he's already given up 3 in 4 games. And one of them, like, it's just fun. It's funny. It's painfully funny because Denver Broncos Twitter was really feeling themselves going into this game, and I guess good for them. They got the win. But they were hyping up this dude, Nick Bonito, and they're like, Nick Bonito is going to destroy Aaron Rodgers. And all Jet fans are like, who the F is this guy? And Nick Bonito toasted our future Hall of Fame left tackle, like untouched, and Aaron Rodgers got killed. I think, and maybe too, like this is probably isn't fair to the offensive line, but the pass protection from the backs, like particularly Brees, it was leaving a lot to be desired. I think Rodgers got hit 14 times, so we got to be better. Keith Carter's got to figure it out for London.
Are you optimistic that he does that? Are you like a Keith Carter apologist? Like, where do we stand here?
No, I'm optimistic that there's too many talented and smart dudes on the offensive line that they're probably going to figure it out, like amongst themselves, if they can remain healthy. I guess we could touch a little bit more on Keith Carter when we get to the coaching.
Fair.
Let's stick with offense. Where are you at with the receivers?
So I ended up landing at a C plus, and I think, ironically, Alan Lazard is the one who's bumping up this grade. Like him just being a big surprise through the first 4 weeks, and him looking like a functional wide receiver was really exciting and something that I wasn't expecting. Where I am, and I'm sure you are as well, I am very disappointed with Garrett Wilson's first month of the season. It does not look like he's on the same page with the quarterback yet. Now, I'm not out on Garrett. I think he's extremely talented. I think this week has been a little bit overreaction, too much going the other way with that he's not really a number one receiver, or that, you know, like whatever the case is, it's been a little bit much. And I think with Mike Williams getting more involved, the receiver play has improved too, which is good. Mike Williams is starting to look like the version that we saw with the Chargers. So I think obviously this is a room that I think can get better. I think Garrett Wilson is someone who is going to get it in gear and get on the same page with the quarterback. We saw it in training camp. I would imagine that it's going to eventually translate to the regular season as well. And then again, just the surprise with Lazard, I think it had to be noted and skew this a little bit more as more of a positive, closer to a C plus B minus range than like the C minus side.
So Alan Lazard dragging Garrett Wilson's sorry ass to a C plus, like we all drew it up in the offseason, right?
Exactly.
He's been, yeah, man, like there are certain players where, you know, you're like, okay, like this guy will look a little different with Rodgers. Like Brees could take it to the next level, but with Lazard, I truly didn't really buy that, to be honest. And I'm like, he looks like a completely different freaking player. It almost makes you more frustrated because it's like, dude, were you trying last year? Like really, I don't know, but it's you love to see it. The wide receiver trio, I think once Garrett clicks is gonna be nice because Mike Williams is such a. Oh, my grade by the way for wide receivers is a B. I'm a little higher. I've been pleased. I
Okay.
think that. I think Garrett Wilson. I'm disappointed with the chemistry with Rodgers, but Mike Williams has been crazy efficient. Right now, that's the most efficient thing we do on offense is throw back shoulder balls to Mike Williams, and it's amazing how that's kind of all he can do. But he's just so good at it that he just makes a living doing it, and it's a perfect skill set with Rodgers. I think that was a really smart signing. Lazard's been solid. I feel like Mike Williams and Lazard are kind of almost like both looking like they could be number twos, and but Garrett's like disappointing, so he looks like a number two. So we kind of have three number twos, which okay, I think that's worth a B. The depth is definitely concerning because you know Xavier Gibson is just Braxton Berrios kind of to me. That's just kind of what he is. Like he's a kick returner that you hope to not really see on the as a wide receiver a ton. And then Corley, we don't really know. It seems like they're not really confident that he could play a role this year. So is there a spot on this team for Devontae Adams while we're talking receiver?
I think absolutely. I know you put out one of my favorite tweets on the subject where you're like, give me one, reason to not bring him in. Like, give me a good reason not to. There isn't one. Because as you said, they are technically right now, I think you can make a case they're lacking a number one. And again, I think some of that's a little bit too overreaction to Garrett's first 4 games, but
Yeah.
they need this offense to take a step forward to be more competitive. Like it's inexcusable that they only scored 9 points against the Denver Broncos at home. No matter how good the Denver Broncos might be, no matter how wet it was there on Sunday, like conditions were not fun. But still, you got to be able to get in the end zone. You got to be able to convert. But you talk on some of the depth, like Xavier Gibson, I think has just been non-factor. He hasn't really done much for me in the return game either.
No.
And then Corley, I thought they would bring him on slowly. Like the Jets always tend to do this with their young players, especially at receiver, it feels like. But I didn't think like 2 snaps in 4 weeks slow. Like this is a little bit alarming. And I don't know what Xavier Gibson does that is keeping Corley off the field.
Yeah, and that's the one. Like Corley not playing over like Lazard, Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson, fine. Like the starting trio, I think is more than adequate. But yeah, with Gibson, he's played 75 snaps, which is kind of a lot. Now, part of that was front loaded with Mike Williams being on a pitch count early, but that's quite a bit. And they traded up to get Corley like end of the second, early first round. Like I know as Jet fans, I feel like on offense we're so accustomed to like Robert Saleh says he has to like translate the playbook into Pig Latin and learn like all 17 positions before he can play like over Solomon Thomas. But there are teams around the league all the time who take like a day 2 receiver and he just like plays right away and contributes like Tank Dell and Josh Downs. Like it is within the bylaws that the Jets can do that on offense. But thankfully, like Lazard's bouncing back because if Lazard was really like playing like last year's Lazard and Corley was on the pine, that'd be frustrating. But thankfully, those guys are doing well and healthy. And with Adams, let me boil it down to you with this because I think people are just the chat. By the way, the vibes are not good.
Okay.
The vibes are not good. I love you guys. Appreciate you guys hanging out. We're gonna bounce back. I think we might win in London, but I'll put it this way to you, Matt. Are the Jets still? Do the Jets still have a chance to make the playoffs?
Yes, easily yes.
Is that a worthwhile goal?
Of course, yeah.
Does Devontae Adams increase the likelihood of that?
Yes.
Could it be done in a way that doesn't significantly mortgage your future?
Yes. Exactly.
It's that simple to me, man.
I know it should be, but I'm sure you get it too. But I get in the comments like, oh, if you trade for Devontae Adams, like good luck trying to sign, Sauce Gardner and Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. I'm like, this makes zero sense. The guy has no guaranteed money after this. What are we doing?
Yeah, do you think they're gonna come to like in like 18 months? They're gonna come to Sauce and off of his 4th straight All Pro and be like, "Sorry, man, we gotta trade you to the Panthers because we rented Devontae Adams like a year and a half ago." There's no way, man. Now he could cost you some of those like Tyler Conklin, DJ Reed, Morgan Moses, like those level guys, right? Which that's a conversation we can have. But I feel like we're just so used to every time we're talking about spending resources on a different player, it always comes to like we have to pay Sauce, we have to pay Garrett. Like those guys are going to be paid. that will be built in and figured out. It's the other guys you have to wait against, and I think Devontae Adams is I don't know, man. Let's freaking do it. Let's score some points. Why not? Any tight end. Tight end was hard for me, honestly.
Yeah, I went
It's
back and
really tough
forth
to
on my
grade.
grade. So I ended up landing on a C plus, but I went back between C plus and B minus. And I think there's just more meat on the bone at that position. Like I know you're a big Tyler Conklin guy. I like him and was happy that he was more involved in the New England game. I think we will see more games similar to that as the season goes on. I think for me, I like Jeremy Rucker as a blocker. His one opportunity, it felt like, where he could have gotten the end zone against Tennessee, didn't run a good route, and like
Yeah.
that was a little bit frustrating. But overall, like I like this Jets tight end room. I know that's a hot take for some because yeah, the Bauer boy conversations, and not that the Jets tight ends are stopping you from drafting Bowers, but I just thought we as a community were maybe a little bit too low on this tight end room, and I think they've been fine. But again, like it feels like there's a little bit more meat on the bone at tight end, and I don't know if that's just the offense not being in sync yet, or just Rodgers, like whatever. But I think overall for me, C plus B minus is fine. I ended up switching it to C plus at the last minute. I was chickening out as I was hearing all your negative grades at the start. But I'm curious to see where you landed on this positional group.
I'm also at a C plus, which feels
Okay.
low. I will say I think overall my defensive grades are higher than the offensive grades. But here's I rewatch all the games, and I'm not Brian Baldinger, but sometimes the game isn't exactly splitting the atom. And I'm gonna be honest, the blocking from our tight ends has not been good in the run game. And I know that's been billed as Ruckert's strength, and I think he was pretty good at it last year, but he's very inconsistent. And Conklin too. And I like Conklin a lot. I think he is at worst like an average starting tight end in the NFL, making average money, who like never misses games and is just like a good dude and a good teammate. And so that's awesome. He's a great Jet. Definitely worth the investment. I'd be happy if they re-signed Conklin. Like I don't think we're gonna go back at the end of this year and be like that Tyler Conklin and Jeremy Rucker, they tanked the season. Like I don't think it's like that at all. But I think we're lacking a little juice, a little wiggle in that room, especially with those, like when they try to do those yak intended throws, like they try to do like a bubble screen to Tyler Conklin, and it's like that's just not his game. He's got like no yak ability. Now Ruck will go and like he'll lower his shoulder and he'll truck over a dude and get that extra yard, but he's not really elusive or creative at all. So we don't really have anybody dynamic at the position, but it's solid. I think they could definitely be like B and even like up to I think as a ceiling of a B plus as a room. If like Ruck's got to take advantage of that. I know it's only one opportunity, but it's like, dude, you grab a 45-yard touchdown, it's up to a B minus, right? On that play alone, right? That's a huge game changing play. So you got to get the blocking better. And I thought Brendan Bates, maybe he can get some work at fullback too, because he had a nice block. But I think C plus is fair enough for the tight end room. Running back is weird because I feel like you almost got to give two separate grades to the two guys, right?
Yeah.
It's a little night and day.
So I ended up landing on a C. And I think, again, Braylon Allen has far exceeded my expectations through the first 4 weeks of the year. I was a big fan of his coming out. I just wasn't sure how quickly it would catch on. I think he's been really good, and he's looked like through the first 4 weeks of the year, the Jets' best running back. And I don't know what's going on with Breece Hall. He just looks like very indecisive behind the line of scrimmage. It doesn't have that same juice. I don't know if like there's a nagging injury or like what the hell's going on here. For our guy Breece Hall, he did have. I mean, his game against Tennessee, the touchdown catch, I think, and what he can do out of the backfield as a pass catcher makes his grade so far for this year a little bit higher for me. So I ended up, like I said, landing on a C. I would say overall as a unit, it's been, when you just look at the two of them, I would say it's been a little bit underwhelming. So I think this can get up to like a B plus, A minus if Breece Hall gets going, like we know that he can. But for now, I look at it as underwhelming.
Yeah, and I gave it a C plus, so I'm right there with you. And I was looking back at my preseason grades for all these units, and that was the biggest change because I gave this room an A minus at the beginning of the year because, dude, and I know like we overrate our own young players as fans, but you remember they were doing those rankings over the summer where like the GMs and the coaches all got together and ranked the top guys. Brees Hall was running back two in the NFL, just behind Christian McCaffrey, according to those people in the know. So that's really confusing because, dude, imagine if Brees was in form and Braylon was like this, we'd have like the best running back duo in the NFL. So it's super strange. So I kind of gave the way I thought about it was I gave Brees a D and Braylon an A, but because Brees has played more volume, he kind of is weighted more. And I was just watching right before this, I was watching Joe Blewett's film review on Brees, and it's just he's not moving the same. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if a girl broke his heart or whatever the case may be, but he is just. I said it on my post game stream after that game, and I truly mean it. Like if you were to change the number and you told me I was watching like 2023 Dalvin Cook, I would believe you. Like it's that bad. But thank God we drafted Braylon, who's been an absolute freaking tank. And I can't remember a play where this dude has like gone down at or behind the line of scrimmage on the first contact. There was even a play where he got like 6 yards after contact, but it was only a 1 yard gain because there was a defender hit him like as soon as he got the ball. So if Brees can get right, like stylistically, they are a perfect 1-2 punch. But right now, like that's probably the group that is playing below its potential the most, like with Brees, I would say.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And how I'm sure I know your answer, but I want to rile it up out of you. How frustrating that Braylon Allen does not get the ball on the 1 yard line on 3 straight attempts.
Dude, and I saw Salah's comment today, and he was like, well, he's batting 1,000. And then I saw Jet Finch chiming in, like, well, we were saying Brees didn't get enough carries last year near the goal line. And it's like, okay, hold on. That was when Brees was fourth in the league in scrimmage yards. That was when the backup to Brees was like the hologram of Dalvin Cook and Michael Carter, who I think if he was standing on top of himself wouldn't be as tall as Matt O'Leary. So that's different than like you can't pretend like with all the information you had through the first 3.5 games of the season, every piece of information was telling you that Braylon Allen was the dude to use in that situation. And for me, if I'm at the 1 yard line and I know it's like kind of go for a territory, 4 handoffs to Braylon Allen, 4 straight, because he's not going to not go forward for a yard on 4 straight handoffs. Like the math on that is like 95+%. I don't care what Salah says. That was dumb. That he should have got the ball.
Yeah, the pass trying to throw it to Solomon Thomas, who I know that Dawson put this comment out, and we've been rocking this on the screen for a while now.
Oh, let me grab
Like,
that.
yeah, that really broke my brain. I got to tell you, we were sitting together, the Talking Jets crew for this game, and like I was sitting next to Green Bean, and I think we talked about that for like a good 10 minutes. Like, just could not realize. And then obviously right after that too, they have a penalty, so then they don't go for it on fourth down. Which, by the way, right call to go for it on fourth down
Agreed.
and goal from the 1.
Yes.
I think they would. Braylon Allen, if I remember correctly, Braylon Allen was out there when the pre-snap penalty happened. He's likely getting the ball in that spot, but how he doesn't get at least one opportunity on first, second, or third down is just malpractice.
And here's where I will push back on the cadence. I will question Aaron Rodgers just in that situation because the risk reward ratio, if they jump off sides, I get it, you get a free play, but you get like they move the ball 6 inches closer. But if you false start, the play's done, right? So maybe that's one area where it's like, let's just line up and go. But again, if he gets the free play and they throw a touchdown, like none of us are questioning it. But that did like pop into my mind. There's someone posted on Twitter like when the Devontae Adams trade rumors broke, like who's stopping this offense, and it was like Devontae, Garrett Wilson, like Aaron Rodgers and Solomon Thomas in like a four
Incredible.
square. That was great. All right, so let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball. Let's start with the defensive line. How you feeling without Reddick and without Jermaine? If you would have told me neither of them would have been there, I think better than expected.
Yeah, I would say I ended up landing on a B because I think they had 2 good games and 2 not so good games. The first game against San Francisco was very frustrating. We all were saying we got to get Hassan Reddick in here. And then this past game against Denver, it felt like they were getting no pressure whatsoever. But really the emergence of Will McDonald, especially in week 2 and week 3, I think is really, really helping out this grade. I know Quinn Williams hasn't really popped off the page yet, but he's such a talented guy and is doing like the
Yeah.
dirty work on the interior. I don't want to really hold that against him, that his like sack numbers or pressure numbers aren't crazy high. Um, I don't know. Something has to give though, because lining 72 up as a starter is still something that bothers me. But Javon Kinlaw, I think, has been pretty solid. Beyond that, I'm excited about getting Leaky Fotu back. Honestly, I'm hoping he helps in the run game because that's clearly been an issue for this group. But again, for me, I think I landed on a B because when you consider no Jermaine Johnson for most of this year, no Hassan Reddick at all, I think they've held up okay.
Yeah, I'm with you there too. I gave them a B. I think that they're getting a nice boost from the Patriots game. They were absolutely dominant. They had like 7 sacks, and it was like the split between like 8 different guys. That one definitely, that's 1/4 of the grade, so that bumps it up significantly. McDonald's been awesome, and like, is he going to maintain these sack numbers? No, but he's going to get double-digit sacks. He's going to get 60 plus pressures. He's probably going to put up the sack and pressure numbers you were hoping for Hassan Reddick. Honestly, like, he's probably going to get like 12 sacks and 65 pressures, which is phenomenal. Now the run defense is kind of, it's tough right now because the problem is when McDonald is out there, he's easy pickings for the run. But if he's not, you have no pass rush off the edge because JJ was kind of your do it both guy. So now it's like, if I don't know, if I'm an offensive coordinator and you roll out your base defense of Clemens and Jalen Holmes on the edge, like, I'm going to check it to a pass play, and I know my quarterback's going to have all day to throw. So I think I'm just basing this on what they've done so far. So that Patriots game was huge. I won't lie. I do think they're going to struggle to generate pressure without blitzing, without Jermaine and Reddick. Like, any defensive line would. If you take the top 2 edge players off any defensive line, that's going to be the case. Luckily we had Will McDonald, right? Imagine if we didn't draft him, we'd be absolutely screwed. We probably would have had to pay the bag to Reddick by now. But what their teams are doing now is they're triple teaming Quinnen Williams, and now they're chipping at Will McDonald with a back or a tight end, and they're saying, okay, Michael Clemens, Jalen Holmes, Tack McKinley, if you win a one-on-one, so be it. So I think they're probably going to have to blitz more moving forward, which at least they've shown the willingness to do.
I was just gonna say that against New England they did that, and for some reason they got away from it in Denver, which makes no sense because you're going up against Bo Nix, who has not been very good just in general, but especially under pressure. So confusing him with some blitzes was something that I thought Ulbrich and company would try to do, but they really didn't. And without even getting home with any pressure, he still only threw for 60 yards in this game. So that was wild, but. Yeah, for defensive line overall, I think when you consider no Jermaine, no Hassan Reddick, still frustrating situation, but they've been playing pretty well.
Can't argue with that. Linebacker, I think linebacker is one of my higher grades. Where'd you end up with them?
This is my highest grade. I gave him an A. I think what you've seen from Quincy Williams is he looks every bit like the All-Pro that he was last year. He looks incredible flying around, making plays. Now, I know CJ Mosley got off to a slow start and he didn't look great in the game and a half that he played. But I think Jamie Sherwood has came in and played pretty well in his absence, number one. Although I will say, I think for me, this past game against Denver is, I think, the game they missed CJ Mosley the most. I think he would have really helped out a lot in the run defense because they weren't really throwing the ball too much to people.
It was a rugby game.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Which skews towards what CJ Mosley would be good at this point in his career. But again, Quincy and his play, he's been the Jets' best defensive player. So to me, like, how do you not give this one an A?
Yeah, I have an A for it as well. I think Quincy Williams, the way he's been playing the last year plus, is the best off-ball linebacking I've seen in my life as a Jet fan, and there's some good names in there. Yeah. It's as good as anybody. And Sherwood has been awesome. He's one of those guys where it's like we all like say he's going to be good, but like you don't really know. Like sometimes I'll just tweet like Jamie and Sherwood is good, but I don't really know. But I guess he is, so that's kind of nice. That theory worked with Will McDonald too. I'm trying it with Zaire Barnes, so I'm trying to see if I can go 3 for 3. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I do wonder, do you think there's a world in which they platoon Mosley and Sherwood, because it's becoming a pretty clear split of like Mosley run defense, Sherwood coverage. Do you think they would consider doing that?
They should. They really should.
Mm.
I think Quincy is by far their best. Like he's the one who should play 100% of the snaps. I don't think Mosley's that guy anymore, which is fine. Like I'm not saying that he doesn't still have value to this team. I think we forget a little bit how much of a leader he is, and he's kind of is the quarterback of that defense. And having him on early downs for run defense, I think is versatile. But then, yeah, when it's 3rd and 7, take him off the field. Like there's no reason to have CJ Mosley on there to get cooked by a tight end. And Jamie and Sherwood could go sideline to sideline and make plays. So I'm with it. I would platoon those two guys. I think it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and there's gonna be matchups where like they're both on the field and obviously injuries and stuff. But I do like that. Just seems like one of their strengths is so much more towards run than the other, or like matchup based, like you said. If it's gonna be rainy against Denver, maybe more CJ Mosley. But definitely a good problem to have with the linebacking unit. They've been awesome. Corner, I'm guessing that they got to be pretty good for you as well, right? At least in the B range.
I give him A minus, honestly. I have loved DJ Reed's game. I want to start
Oh
with
yeah,
Reed. I think he's been fantastic. I thought he looked awesome against Denver. And he was clearly playing through something in this one, or just earlier in the year rather. And I think he's looked, every bit the guy that we were hoping to be Sauce's running mate. I think some of the Sauce stuff is overblown. Yes, he didn't have a great game against Tennessee, but other than that, I think he's been fine in the other games. Tackling's never going to be his strength. He's not going to be great in the run game. I don't think he's anyone who's ever going to get like 5+ interceptions in a season, but like every week you're going to look up and be like, oh, he allowed 28 yards receiving again this week on 1 or 2 catches.
right.
And Michael Carter, still like him out of the slot, another guy who's dealing with the ankle injury. I think the Jets having the depth at this position also helps this grade. But honestly, like for me, it's Reed. I think Reed is carrying this grade up to an A minus because he's been really, really solid.
Yep, we're starting to click here. I have this one as an A minus as well, and I think the only reason I don't have it as an A was Sauce's game against the Titans.
Sure.
Which yeah, I agree. I think that I'm not really on board with some of the Sauce discourse. I think like Brees and Garrett are disappointing. So like we're just down on our young players. Like Garrett's on the same page. Brees, oh, and Sauce you too. And it's like the guy like me meme. Like why am I a part of this? Like Sauce's start to this year to me is not that different from last year because you remember he had the really bad game in Dallas week 2 last year. He ended up being a first team All Pro. I'd wager he makes the first or second team All Pro again if he plays all the games and we can debate it, but I'll tell you what, the opposing offensive coordinators are telling you how good Sauce is because Reed is really freaking good, and Denver wanted no part of throwing towards Sauce Gardner. They were motioning Sutton to get matchups with DJ Reed, testing him downfield. That's what they wanted, and Reed was up to it. But obviously, the coaches who are watching the film are like, yeah, you know what, we're not going to test number one. Michael Carter, I was worried because remember Robert Saleh said he was like his leg was gonna have to get amputated and he's gonna have to only play he's gonna have to come out, and we're like, well, he just like said it. He's like, he'll be playing like half the game, maybe sometimes. We're like, what? And then but then like it didn't. So it's good with Saleh because if Saleh said he was like perfectly fine, you'd be like writing his obituary. But Saleh said he was like in like critical condition. But now Michael Carter's like playing all the snaps and he played awesome. He looked like an all-pro corner again. I thought the coverage unit was really awesome in Denver, even granted the quarterback play and all that. So and Eccles is your primary backup at 3 positions, and you know what? If Jarrett Bernard Converse had to play, I think he might be all right too. Like we really are.
He
And
looked good
everyone
in the
loves
preseason, man.
Stiggers. Yeah, he did. So I don't know. I think corner is a spot where we'll be able to like corner and linebacker are spots they've earned the benefit of the doubt. Like they have some developmental chops there for sure. Safety. So we got safety, and then I did one for special teams, and then we can finish with coaches
Okay.
as well. Where you at with safety?
So I went with C on this one. I thought they got off to a horrible start. They started really, really tough in this one. And honestly, in the Denver game, I think you could make the case that the Cortland Sutton touchdown seemed like it was Chuck Clark on the miscommunication. And I'm a big Chuck Clark guy. I was the one that was beating the drum that I think he would have been and still probably will end up being a clear upgrade over Jordan Whitehead.
At least for the money.
Yeah, right, exactly. At least for the money is a great point. But um, I don't know with Tony Adams. Like I don't know if I love him being the starting free safety. I don't think they've been like abysmal where it's such an issue, a glaring issue, and you got to give them like a horrible or close to failing grade. But I don't think they've been great either. I think they've had some okay moments, and they've had some not so great moments. But I have more faith in the veteran of the group and Chuck Clark turning it around than I do Tony Adams, which I don't know if that makes sense because like Adams is the younger player, and you could argue, I guess he's still developing, but for me, like I just don't see it consistently enough with him, and he's another one who can't tackle.
Yeah, I have this room at a B minus, and I think looking at my grades, I think I was definitely like a victim of my expectations. So like I was probably like harsher on the offensive line because of how talented they were, and like safety. I think we all kind of came into the year with the understanding that's probably the weakest room on the team, and the Jets under Saleh, I pretty much told you we're not going to invest a lot of resources there. If we can be mid at safety, we'll take it. And yeah, week one was pretty bad, but I think with Tony Adams, I think the problem is we don't really have a true like center fielding free safety. Because I think Tony Adams would be the perfect like sub package safety that could come in on like some big nickel looks. Because in man coverage, he's really good. He's super athletic. So when they go like cover one on third down, they try to get they motion a receiver out and like try to run a crosser and just beat the safety. Like he'll run step for step. In the run game, he has those earlier Ashton Davis angles sometimes. Clark, there was that play where they gave up the touchdown against Tennessee, and like Clark doesn't get there, but I was like, that's just not his game. Like
No,
when I was watching Clark in Baltimore, he was almost like a quasi linebacker, and I assume that's kind of what he would be doing. But just don't think they trust Tony Adams like awareness and like ball hawking skills in the deep middle, I guess. So there's a little bit of an Ashton Davis is not really a pure free safety. I think they've been looking for that, right? For the longest time, like the Marcus Joyner, they keep recycling guys. But at the end of the day, I think you're allocating like $2 million to your two starting safeties. And I think they've been okay for that. Like they're not liabilities at all. And Isaiah Oliver, I don't know. They're all just kind of meh. Like no one's really making you feel warm and fuzzy inside in the safety room.
no,
I'm definitely higher than you on Tony Adams' ceiling, though. I'll say that.
okay.
Or
Yeah,
potential.
and that's yeah, and that's fair. But like at the same time, you said it kind of just like meh, but it's also not like again, like, oh my god, like this is gonna be the thing that holds them back. Like I
Right.
guess it's good if you're gonna pick a spot where you're weakest at, it being safety, I feel like is fine. Like obviously in a perfect world, you have the best of everything, but if you're a little bit weaker at the safety spot with how they play defense, it's really focused on their pass rush and their cover corners. Like it should be fine with this defense.
Yeah. And I think Ashton Davis is the highest safety that they've drafted in the third round, and no one other ones even in like the fourth. So and Whitehead was the biggest contract for a safety. So that's kind of what they've told us. Special teams, where you at?
So for me on special teams, I think I'm also gonna go like right in that C range. Morstead, I hope he punts till he's 65, and I hope he punts with the Jets for that long because he just keeps doing this thing. Another really strong game for him against Denver. Greg the leg's a little bit concerning for me, and it's not a overreaction to a 50-yard kick in the rain. Like I don't think they put him in a fair place in that spot, but he missed a kick the week prior. He missed a couple kicks in the preseason, and like kicker's such a volatile position. He was kind of due for aggression, but the misses are a little bit concerning. The other thing that I'll add on top of that is the returner. Like I don't think Gibson really gives them anything. He had a great moment week one last year, but I think he's been fairly average. And that actually might maybe even below average. I think if you look it up, it's like 28th in yards per attempt on punt return and
Okay.
31st in kick return. I might have flip flopped those two, like which was which, but it's 28th and 31st, which is clearly not good enough.
Right.
Um, and also like I know Irv Charles had a monster game against Tennessee. Um, so like I was kind of eating crow for that game, but I wasn't the biggest fan of the Jets keeping him on the roster to be the gunner. I would have been fine if they went with Brandon Eccles or Quantez Stiggers to fill that role. But that might just be my own personal thing there. He also did have a brutal penalty in the game against Denver, so maybe that's skewing it for me too.
Yeah, when I was doing my Monday. I think Dylan Terman's in here. What's up, dude? I was doing my Monday show with Dylan, and we dug up a stat that under the Sala era, because we were just in like pile-on mode. We're like, all right, let's find all the worst shit we could say about this freaking team that pissed us off. And in the Sala era, they've had seven like 15 yards, not like holding, blocking the back, like 15-yard extracurricular penalties. Seven of them from their gunner
That's
between
insane.
Charles and Hardy. And then somebody like in our chat reminded us that it only came down to like once a month on the Sala era, and I was like, dude, if me and Matt O'Leary work at the same office and once a month I just go over and dump hot coffee on him, like that's more than it should ever happen. Like, right, the number should be zero, maybe like one, one or zero is the
I'll give
only
you
right
two.
number.
I'll even give you two on
it's,
that one, man.
it's crazy, man. It's wild stuff. Yeah, special teams, I gave them a C. I think Morstead is really the saving grace right now. I think they'll bounce back because they've been good the last 2 years. They still have Brant Boyer, who's one of our better coaches. But like DVOA wise, they're down there in the like the mid 20s on special teams. And I think the missed kicks happen. And Greg Z, it's not a panic thing because kickers are weird, man. Once they start getting mental issues and they start losing it, it's like it's just one of those things where it's like, oh shit, we don't have a kicker anymore. Like it just happens like that. So that's concerning. It's not like, it's not like if Garrett Wilson drops two passes, like, okay, he's gonna be fine. But with kicker, it's weird and ironic. Like the thing that's kind of sucks is like they had that kid who was like money in the
Cyber. He's
preseason,
doing great in Washington
and
now.
I don't think he's missed. But dude, if we let go of you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You know, if you let go of the proven commodity and Siebert started struggling, like we'd be eviscerating them too. You know.
Yeah, I don't blame them, by the way, for giving the kicking competition to Zerline. He's been very good for them and stable after who was it, Jason Myers in 2017, and then like they just had nobody for 4 or 5 years after that, which was really tough, but not something super high in the pecking order because we were talking about like so many other important, like Henry Anderson being an every down player, like other, dumb stuff like that was significantly more important than worrying about kicker at that time. But when you're a good team, that stuff really matters. And I hope that it's not like just completely falling off a cliff for Zerline. I hope that like he can get back on track and hopefully like, I don't know, do a better job. Don't make your kicker have to kick a 50-yard field goal in the ring to win.
Yeah, no, that one specifically, and I could feel it. I was like, the football gods are not letting this kick go in. Like, there's no way
he didn't deserve that game kick either, by the way.
No, not at all. Finally, coaching, which it's hard because it's like there's lots of different aspects to it. But did you stamp a final one on it?
Yeah, I just did an overarching grade for this, and I went D. This is my lowest grade. Now, I didn't go full F because I did want to give both Saleh and actually Nathaniel Hackett some credit for their game plan against New England. Like I thought they actually did a really good job for that game with their plan. And they actually changed some things up that they don't normally do. They came out passing. They were much more aggressive, trying to get up to an early lead. They were blitzing, which is something that they also don't do. And it worked to perfection. And then they followed up with just an absolute stinker on 10 games rest, going from a home game to another home game. So obviously really frustrating. D is not an acceptable grade. And if there is something that could hold the Jets back this year, it very will likely be the coaching that does it. So I didn't want to go full F, but if someone did go full F, I get it. But I landed on a D because I actually think they had a couple okay moments this year.
Yeah, I went D-, and it's truly just because I don't want to be a complete doomer and say F. And there are good coaches on this staff.
Yeah.
They're just not at the most important positions like head coach and offensive coordinator. You could argue, I think Robert Saleh and Nate Hackett, you could argue are probably like a bottom, 5 duo, but they got good assistant defensive coaches in White Cotton, in Ulbrich, in Manuel, and Odin. Brant Boyer is a good coach, but like the offensive staff, like with spearheaded by Hackett and Downing and then Saleh, like I think it's fair to say that in most, it doesn't mean that the Jets can't win a lot of games. They won 7 games last year. They didn't have a quarterback with a lot of the same staff, but I think it's fair to say that week in and week out, like most weeks, the Jets are going to have a disadvantage in terms of coaching, right? If you look at the games coming up, like Minnesota has a better staff than us. Buffalo has a better staff than us. Steelers have Mike Tomlin, right? So that's our and Sean Payton and Vance Joseph were better. So that's like 4 straight games. Shanahan was better. So the only like the 2 games that we won were against rookie head coaches, right? That's kind of telling a little bit, I think. And I think to try to be objective, like if we were fans, if we were doing a podcast for the Arizona Cardinals or whatever, and they fired their coach and somebody said, "Hey, why don't we hire, Robert Saleh and Nate Hackett?" Like you'd be laughed off the show. Like no one would even take that seriously. So it's it is what it is, man. It's tough. I think Bob's a good dude, but I don't think firing him does nothing.
No.
But my spidey senses on him are saying maybe he ain't quite the answer, to be honest.
No, and honestly, like where I stood on that was like I wanted to see him with the legitimate quarterback because
Right.
he was dealing with a traffic cone at the position for the last 3 years. And like his first really big test, he absolutely failed, which was this Denver game. They were so undisciplined. The penalties is a real issue. I didn't like his answer today. He seemed very nonchalant about the penalty problem. And it's like, well, like 13 penalties like that never happened. So it's not going to happen again. But they had 7 penalties against Tennessee, and they were the most penalized team in the league last year. Like I know that they likely won't have as many false starts and pre-snap stuff going forward, but feels like every game there's at least 1 or 2 really dumb avoidable penalties. And like if these things continue to happen, to me that goes on leadership more so than the actual individual players.
Yeah, and it's like I don't to me, and again, I know it's recency bias, but there were certain things that happened in that game that were like wake up moments for me, like where it's like the not giving the ball to Braylon Allen on the 1 yard line with like the Solomon Thomas stuff, or it was just like, dude, like how could you? And then like saying when they're like, would you think about giving it to Braylon Allen? And Salah was like, oh shit, yeah, like, yeah, we might consider that. And it's like I know that's just his coach answer, but it's like, or him questioning the cadence. He's like, I don't know, like cadence, madence. Maybe we shouldn't do the cadence anymore. And then Rogers gave the actual coach answer of like, no, you guys just have to get on my program. I've been cadencing for the entirety of a Hall of Fame career. So the fact that he was just like, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't do the cadence anymore. It's like, I don't know, man. If somebody was an accountant and they suggested to me like convert all your assets into just Boy Green merch, all of it, just Boy Green merch, like love Boy Green, but like that would be a fucking asinine thing to say, and that would make me question like everything else about accounting. Like that was the level of ineptitude I feel like we watched as a coaching staff in Denver. So I'm probably overweighting one game. I'm really freaking hoping that we just reset the vibes with a win in London, because that's all it would take, dude. You reset the vibes with a win in London, and you're at home playing for first place in the division in week whatever 5 or 6, and we're feeling good.
Yeah, honestly, like I don't think it's that crazy if the Jets win this game against Minnesota. Like
No.
obviously Minnesota's looked phenomenal. They put up 30 points the last 2 weeks. They're 4-0. Darnold's looked good, but like I don't know. I don't think they're going 15-2. Like they're gonna lose some games eventually. And I think this roster is good enough where they could hang and beat any team in the league, but this coaching staff is also bad enough where they could lose to just about any team in the league. So maybe it just swings from like one extreme all the way back over to another extreme. Like would not be shocked at all if they came away with a win. And honestly, that'd be a lot of fun because that would be a good chance, you're playing for the division then in week 6 against Buffalo. And we know that they played them tough the last 2 years.
Yeah, I think it would be very on brand for the Jets to like beat the Vikings and beat the Bills and then like lose to the Patriots like shortly after. Yep. Like that is just totally where we're at. Dude, Matt, that was fun, man.
Yeah, I love it. We don't get to chop it up very often on camera, but always love your takes and your Twitter feed. So glad to do this, and hopefully we keep this going, man.
If anybody is living under a rock, Matt O'Leary, just like his name is spelled, Twitter, YouTube, he does Talking Jets collaborations. They got their own channel. Check all that stuff out. What do you got cooking up on the feed coming up for us, Matt?
Yeah, tomorrow I'm gonna do my full breakdown and preview of Jets Vikings. So be on the lookout for that. And honestly, man, just refreshing Twitter on this Devontae stuff. Apparently, I think it was Breer had like that. Most of these teams think the Jets are going to be the team that lands him, which it would not surprise me at all. But I think it's going to be sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way it waits to the deadline. I think this is probably going to be like, I could see maybe them, if they know it's too soon for him to play in London, like maybe they do it next Monday to not have to pay him for an extra game check. Like that's the one
Yeah.
thing I could see waiting on that because it is like $1 million or whatever. So Woody Johnson might want to hold off for a second. Noah Skills with on the last minute super chat preaching man. A fighter jet is basically a jet with pistols, right? Okay. So our signature flying jet TD celebration might be oh yeah, the Alan Lazard.
Yeah, no fun league strikes again, right? Like I don't know. There's so many other things that we should be concerned about. But that being a flag, and like you could tell, like the referees, they were getting their rocks off when they threw that flag. They're like, yeah, we really
Yeah.
got him. We
Well,
taught
did
him.
you see them reenacting it in the huddle? They were like, "You did this." I'm
No,
like,
I didn't. You know, we couldn't. They don't show. Another thing that I hate about MetLife Stadium is they don't show replays at all.
right.
So I didn't watch back the game broadcast. I've watched all 22 because I'm gross like that, but I did not see them reenacting it, which just is very on brand and not surprising.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know this that they've been cracking down on it. That's the thing, like any sort of gun gesture. But to me, it was like that was not a violent. Like it was like do like I don't know, like little like finger guns. Like when you see your little cousin at Thanksgiving, like hey, what's up, man? Like it's such a non. But I don't know. As ticked off as I was about the penalties, like I don't know. I can't in good conscience get he pointed. I don't know. Whatever. I guess don't do it in the future. But that's pretty lame. I mean, they're about to let Tua Tagovailoa back on the field and risk his life in like 2 weeks. But heaven forbid anyone to do any finger guns.
Yeah,
Crazy.
sell their soul for gambling, the whole thing. But we draw the line at finger guns.
Brutal. All right. We will be talking to you guys next week. Thanks for hanging out. Check out Matt O'Leary and hit the thumbs up on your way out. And we'll talk all soon. Go Jets.